Hey, okay, so a couple days ago I released the automatic car generator to the tier 7 folks, and it's just every time you run the script, it gives you a new car, it randomizes a bunch of different. Well, that's an ugly one. Some of them are better than others. But yeah, every time you click run, it gives you a different car, and it randomizes a bunch of different stuff, like the colors and all of that, including things like the hubcaps and the headlights and the taillights. And I wanted to go through how I randomize the hubcaps, because that's a technique that I've used before on like the room generator, but it's really handy, and that has nothing to do with the script. It's actually some really basic node stuff, but yeah, it's just. So I thought maybe I'll go through the basics first, and then we'll make a self-randomizing poster. So let's hop over into it, and let's stick with the hubcap example. So I've got my plane here. Let's create a new material, make the base color an image texture, and load in our hubcaps. And if we go into material view right here, you can see it squished all of them right in here. So I'm gonna slide open the UV editor, and if I just click that. Someday I'll figure out what this pin does. We'll just pull open the hubcaps JPEG here, and if we tab into edit mode, you can see it's just, box selecting everything. So I'm gonna hit SY and scale it down and just center it on one hubcap. Doesn't matter which one. And what we want to do is we want to be able to move this between these different hubcaps randomly and automatically. And can we do that with shaders? Yes we can. That's why we're here. So let's go over into the shader editor here. And I have the Node Wrangler add-on activated. It comes with Blender. You just have to activate it in the preferences. So I can select hubcaps here and click Control-T, and that gives me some mapping nodes. And right here, you can see we've got some options for the mapping. If I change the Y-axis, look at that. Slides up and down on the different hubcaps. So can we just randomize what this value is? Yeah! I'm going to hit Shift-A to bring up the Add menu and go to Input, Object Info. We just plug random right into this. One thing you'll notice though, this has an X, Y, and Z value, but only one input. And if we randomize it, it's gonna randomize all of those values, which is not exactly what we want. So how do we get those X, Y, and Z values back? Well, we just add a converter, combine XYZ node and stick that in there and plug the randomness into the one we want to randomize. So now all the hubcaps are centered, but it's still just picking random places, up and down along the Y-axis for it to be. And so can we constrain that? Yes we can. I'm going to add a color ramp node and slide that in there. And so what the random input is doing is it's giving you a value between 0 and 1. And if it isn't, believing that it does hasn't harmed me yet. And the color ramp node gives you a really easy way to think about those values. Black is 0 and white is 1, let's say. And so the random input gives you, let's say it's 0.5 or something like that. But you can change this, and now suddenly everything below 0.5 equals 0 coming out. And you can see that here. Half of these are now unmoved. We can change this up, and so now there's only like a 10% chance that any of these are going to be anywhere other than 0. Alright, so can we break this down so that it only stops at places where the hubcaps are? Yeah, so alright, I'm going to disconnect this, and if we start moving this up, by the time we get to 1, it will have gone in a full circle. So we just have to divide this up into 4. So plug this back into the Y here. Add a couple more nodes. Click on this one. This value will be 0. This value will be 0.25. You guys know how to divide 100. This one will be 0.5. And this one will be 0.75. And this one honestly doesn't even need to exist because it's flush up against the right there. Nothing will ever be there. Alright, but this is still a gradient, so we're going to change it from linear to constant. And now it's just those 4 values. And we can also here distribute stops evenly so the probability is equal. And now there is a random chance that it'll be on any one of these with just this. This for me is very cool. And I think it's self-evident, but the reason we divided it into 4 is because there were 4 different hubcaps. If you had 10 hubcaps, you'd go up by intervals of 0.1, because we're just dividing that space between 0 and 1 by however many things we have. So it'd be like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, blah, 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 blah. If you had like 16 things, you would, to get that value, you would divide 1 by 16, which gives you 0.06. And so that's the interval you go up every time, or 0.0625. I think that makes sense. But okay, let's say you have a setup like this, where it's randomizing up and down along the y-axis, but you also want to shift along the other axis too. Let's say maybe you have a grid of license plates or something, and you just want to, you don't want everything to be super tall. That makes a lot of sense. So you go, all right, I got this. We'll add another color ramp node. We'll drag it randomly into here, and we'll plug this into the x-axis. And suddenly it looks a whole lot less random. And that is because this is only providing you with one value. This is pseudo-random. There's a randomness algorithm, and like if you plug 1 into it, it'll come back out with like 72. You go, oh, that's random. You plug 2 in, and it pops out with like 13. But if you plug 2 in again, it'll give you 13 again. You'll always get 13 if you plug in 2. And the seed and that's called the random seed, the number you plug in. And the random seed for all of this comes actually from the object name, I believe. And that's going to be the same for both of these values, which means if it gives you, like 0.9, that's going to be right here on this one and right here on this one, which puts it right there. If it's 0.2 or 0.2, it'll be, down here. They'll all fall along this friggin' diagonal, which is what we're seeing here. So we have to randomize this axis independently from the random input. Right. So as a Blender 2.81, we can do that really easily with white noise. There's a bunch of ways to do it, but this is a good one, and I think it's actually doing it right now. I like to plug in or go down to 4D just so it gives me this little slider, so I can just like really randomize a bunch of different stuff if I want to. But this way, everything will actually be at a random point on the image and not all along that diagonal. All right, so now let's design some posters, and you can obviously make them however you want. I recently enjoyed getting over myself and just letting myself use some stock photography because a lot of this stuff just looks so good, and you throw some words on here and you look like you have an actual promotional poster instead of just like something that you had lying around on your hard drive. And so like I was making magazines, and just any close-up of a beautiful woman with a big word across it is like, that's what magazines look like. Some other little subheadings of like 24 new uses for your toenails. Pixabay and Unsplash are some really good go-tos. I'm sure there's 10 bazillion. These are the ones that I tend to use. So you can think about your world building. You can think about what people in that world would be trying to sell people or advertise or know. And type that into the search. Relaxation. Standing lessons. This old man's letter sack. Dog. Goose. But let's say your brain is fried. You don't have any creativity left. You've been in quarantine for 17 years. Let's give our brains a vacation. Let's go to Barcelona. Let's see. And, oh yeah, La Sagrada Familia. Of course, let's drop our little guy in here, Google Street View, and we'll just walk around and look at the ads. What do ads look like? Women with purses. Of course, I would have guessed that. From a Gaudi perspective, I don't think we have a regular representation ad-wise. When in Spain, get the panis. Combos. Yes, absolutely. Combos. I don't know. I don't speak good Spanish. Taxis. Here's a little calculator. Probably taxes. Don't have ads for taxes. You're making a fantasy world. This one is excellent. I like that this child is forbidden. Massage? Yes. A souvenir shop? You're doing some world building. I've never considered having a souvenir shop in... Of course. Yes. That said, I don't think this is a souvenir shop. Car glass. Don't want to get too cocky, but I think I know what that one is. Yoga and health and leaves. Oh no, I've got the wanderlust now. Can you imagine? I'm 12 feet tall walking across the crosswalk. I get distracted by this double moped, and I bump into this woman. She drops all of her oranges, and we pick them up, and we both grab the last one, and we look at each other, and she goes, "You must be new in town. Here, let me show you the sights." You end up on an old pier overlooking the sea. Lorena laughs and says, "I like you. You have a good sense of humor. If we're an American." You walk through the park hand in hand, savoring every moment when, what's that behind you? It's the Eiffel Tower. You end up in it. It's the most romantic night of your entire lives. Years pass like seconds. You have twins, a boy and a girl. The recession hits. Lorena gets a job as a tuk-tuk driver in Sri Lanka. You lose your job and you have to take up busking outside that gun restaurant in Buenos Aires. The commute is intense. Twins both die of typhoid. You and Lorena slowly get older and sadder. She doesn't think you're quite as funny anymore. But you'll always have Paris. Alright, you've got your inspiration, so let's hit F3, images as planes. And let's load in a burger. Here, emit. We want everything to be emission because we're not actually trying to calculate any light or anything. We just want the values to be what the values are in the image. So if we go into rendered, it's just everything's at 1, so this is just what the JPEG is. And let's set up our camera. Gonna just add a new one here. And I'm gonna make it orthographic. And that just means perspective won't be coming into play at all. All that does matter here, Control 0 on the numpad to go into that camera view. All that does matter is the orthographic scale. So we'll zoom in, and actually let's change it so these are all posters. I'm gonna go, instead of 1920 by 1080, I'm gonna go 1080 by 1920. And change the zoom here. Ooh, actually, I guess, yeah, let's try to match the aspect ratio of that a little better. There we go. Alright, so I'm gonna go Shift A, add some text here. Combo! And here, rotate this. Let's make this also an emissive material. Let's make it like a good combo color. Ooh, yellow like that. That's good. Let's make a better font. Bold. We need bold. Excellent. I'm going to duplicate this and put it behind. Create a new material that's like orange, kind of a dark orange. Yeah. I'm going to offset it this way, offset it, duplicate it, offset it that way. It looks more like Gombo, but you know what? That makes it even more intriguing, doesn't it? Here, we'll grab this bit here, change the font to something less Gombo-y. Try the new amazing dish that looks like a burger but is actually new, and it's called, you guessed it, Gombo. And here, let's add a little like sub thing in here, like eating is believing. Does that mean anything? That definitely means something. There we go. We've got a poster. We just hit F12, render it, Alt S to save it. Gombo, and I'm gonna save it as a JPEG for no good reason. And this is a defining moment because you're gonna want to be done making posters as soon as possible, but you're making an asset, and you'll probably be using this asset a lot. And if you only make 4 posters, you're gonna be using those same 4 posters a lot. And so it very much is in your best interest to just bite the bullet, make like 16 posters. Just have that be your project for the day, but then you'll actually have some richness that you can draw on at any time, and it'll help you out in the future. It's worth it. That said, I only made 4, so let's set these up. I'm gonna turn this camera into an orthographic camera again. Whoa, and we'll find out what resolution we want in a second here. F3, images as planes. I'm gonna load in those posters. Here, 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 here. Emit, yes. And I accidentally made them at 2 different dimensions, and so I'm just gonna make them fit. I'm gonna make sure they're actually all the same, because otherwise this just gets more complicated. And ideally I just would have been a little bit more careful as I was making them. But yeah, going to line these all up as square as I can bother. Go into the camera mode here and just change the aspect ratio until it fits. I guess I gotta zoom. Ooh, there's probably one axis I could match up, and this would make it all a lot easier, because otherwise I'm just going to be going like, oh, there we go. Yeah, this is it. Alright, and is the top and the bottom close enough to... Yeah, it's close enough, I think. Cool. Alright, so now we will save this, render that and save that as a JPEG. Or PNG. I don't know what's best. 4 posters in one. And now we're gonna do the thing we did before. Shift A, images, oh come on, images as planes, 4 posters in one. I'm gonna keep it principled now. And actually, that's very blurry. I must have exported it very... Yeah, I did. I was just tweaking the resolution for the aspect ratio without realizing that's very small. So here, we'll double that. F12, re-render. There we go. Just save over the old one. All right, and reload that. That's looking a bit better. Okay, so all we actually want is one of these posters here, so I'm just going to lob off the rest. And let's do the randomization thing. So slide open the shader editor. Control T with the node wrangler. We're going to add in our combine X, Y, Z so we can tweak just the Y axis here. Bring in the object info node. Randomness into the Y. And we got to control it with... Alright, it's not looping. Okay, it's invisible because it's offsetting it, yes. But... This, when you do images as planes, it also uses the alpha channel, which means anything beyond the edge doesn't repeat, it's just clipped. So if we cut this, ideally we should see things again. Okay. We don't. But we're not going to panic. Well, it's still set to clip. Let's change that to repeat. Repeat! Okay, we're back. That's good. So that's what you gotta know if that happens. Alright, so color ramp, and let's see, add 2 more here. This one will be 0.75, 0.5. Oh, it's already there. Huh. Or was it? Yes. And 0.25. It's already there. Okay, cool. They just did it for us. Constant, and distribute steps evenly. And now every time we duplicate this poster, you can even use Alt-D. It should be one of the 4 random posters. Is it? Are those all 4? I feel like we're missing one. Oh, okay. For some reason, when I okay, yeah, when I said distribute stops evenly, it slammed this one back over on the right. So let's just add in one more and be like, all right, now you're 0.75 if that's going to be how you wanna do it. And now if we say distribute stops evenly, there we go. We've got all 4 of our posters. Let's have a little bit more fun with it. Okay, let's delete all of these. And as part of this same object, here, I'm going to duplicate this, bring it back just a little bit. Let's make like a mounting board. So let's add another material. This will be like metal frame, assign, and I'm just going to like extrude some stuff out here. Just to kind of hold it. Here, we'll tuck this back in as if it's kind of like recessed. This one will just be sitting in here. In fact, maybe we can grab all these loops. Just round it out just a bit. Cool. In fact, let's grab this top piece. I'm going to bring it forwards and kind of just turn it into a light. Delete this. In fact, let's pull this front piece out. I'm going to turn on proportional editing here so I can, here, I'll scroll up to change the area of influence. Yeah. And actually, let's grab this whole loop. I'm going to duplicate it and just turn off proportional editing and just rotate it. It's easier than having to make a cylinder and line it all up, I guess, for our purposes here, which is quickly trying to make a light. Okay, so this is the metal frame. Let's go into make it an image texture, load in something that looks kind of metal. Let's see, bear. Yeah, all of these would work great. Yeah, that's probably a good one. Tab in edit mode. Select everything except for the poster because that's here. We'll just hit select with this selected, and it'll select everything with that material, which looks as if the poster's selected, but I feel like it shouldn't be. So I think we're actually safe. If I hit U, cube projection, good. It reprojects the metal bits, but not the poster. We'll go into UV editor, make sure it's actually using enough. Let's line it up maybe with like some of this gunk. Yeah, that works. Gonna go into normals and check auto smooth. Maybe just duplicate this again. And actually, I like this kind of grungy bit, so I might just shove everything down in there. Yeah. All right, and now let's make this a light. In fact, let's duplicate this object a few times. So imagine it's like going down a wall in like a subway station or something. It's always weird. Sometimes I think the randomness is broken, but like true randomness means sometimes the same thing can happen over and over again. So all right, whatever we do to one, since I've been using Alt-D instead of Shift-D, it'll happen to all of them because they're all different instances of the same object. But each object has a different object name, and so it's still getting the random seed for the shader nodes. You guys are keeping up. All right, new material. Let's call this light. And I'll just assign it to the selected faces here. Assign. Let's go into the shader editor. And instead of principled, we could keep it principled. I'm just going to make it more obvious building blocks here. An emission material into here. Cool. And let's grab our object info node, because we're going to add a little bit of randomness to these lights also. If we just plug this straight in, let's see, what does it do? Okay, it just, it gives you a different value between 0 and 1, which it turns into like black or white. And right now it's going into the color, but we could put it into the strength instead, which looks the same, but it's two different, I mean, it's functionally the same, I suppose, in this specific instance. In fact, let's do that, because we'll use this to randomize this, and I'm gonna plug the random into the color here. I'm gonna stick a color ramp in between so we can change it from black and white to, like, I don't know, let's make it some ugly different fluorescent colors. There's no reason why this would actually happen in real life, where like a bunch of fluorescent bulbs would some be pink and some would be green and some would be like yellow, but it's gonna add some variety to our scene. Maybe it's lots of different brands of fluorescent light. Actually, I like the strength. Let's keep the strength all kind of at, like, I don't know, maybe 11. If we change to cycles, is this looking kind of interesting? Save. Oh, that's looking pretty good. In fact, if we wanted, I don't know if it makes it better, but we could very easily just select this light up here, duplicate it, and throw it on the bottom too for just better light coverage. Yeah, that's looking all right. I'm gonna go back into Eevee. It doesn't cast light, but it will show up a little bit faster. Okay, so let's actually toggle let's make some of these lights burnt out. So instead of emission, let's just have it be a regular glossy, like it's like a light bulb or something. And we'll mix these together. Mix shader. Ooh. And so now it'll be either glossy or they'll be on. And we can control this using the random input right here. And so now this is just giving it random, it's picking the mix at random, but we can use a color ramp node here. Change it to constant and just pull this down, and now it's an either or, it's a binary. So we just see all the lights twinkle on. Now there is still a correlation between which color they are. Like, I think this means all of the only lights still on will be the pink ones, although it's too bright to really see. Here, let's change this to like 2. If we make this very pink, yeah, the pink ones go off last because they're the ones over here. So we'll add our white noise. 4D, randomize it a little bit, and now ideally, yes, we've got green ones, we've got pink ones, and all of that. This is also a good way to animate, you know, a bunch of things like this. In this case, it's hard to animate these exact values here. Like, I don't know if you can actually animate these little points, but you can put a brightness node in there and animate, you know, hover over brightness to add a keyframe, and you can just animate the brightness going up and down. It'll do the same thing. There's a little trick if you need to animate it. See, all right, now some of them are randomly burnt out. And was I gonna do anything else? Was that it? Oh, I guess while we're here, we can try to jump into cycles. Let's try to make this paper look just a little bit better. I'm gonna jump back into the 4 posters, and what I love is that it's just one material for all the posters. So we just update one thing and it propagates immediately. I'm gonna throw an image texture into the roughness here, and let's just find something that looks like it has some good randomness, and we'll try it out. I don't always know what's gonna look good or not. That's very high contrast. We'll just do this one. I always do this one. All right, and with that plugged in, we can see. You can see it just a little bit. It's very glossy right now. In fact, let's add a sun lamp. There we go. So that's what it's looking like, and that's actually pretty cool. I'm going to put in a color ramp here. Just make it black as straight gloss. I don't want to ever be like straight glossy, so I'm going to raise that a little bit. And yeah, that's looking okay. Actually, here, I'm going to hit Control-T just to bring up the mapping nodes here, and let's just repeat it to increase the resolution of the specular or the roughness map. Cool. And if we wanted, we could plug this into the normal too for bump map. We just have to throw a vector in there. Boop, and plug this into the height. Maybe change the distance to like 0.1, and now it's using the roughness map not only for the roughness, but for a little bit of bump mapping, which maybe doesn't make the most sense in this case. In fact, I might disconnect that and add a Musgrave texture instead. Drag that into the height, and just gives us some warbles like this, and then just like everything else, we can hit Control-T. We could tweak the scale of all that. Right now it's using generated, which means it's stretching the texture to fit like the aspect ratio of the object. But if you use object, it squares everything up, and so it doesn't have, well, right now it doesn't look like it's doing anything. But if we change the scale, you can see now it's a more uniform, it isn't a stretched texture. We could probably increase the detail, get some nice crinkles on there. And actually here, I put it up against a wall here. But let's do just a little bit more. This is looking confusing, but it's just, you know, this is our randomizer here. This is the roughness we set up. These are the normals. I'm going to throw in a little bit of a saturation control right here at the last second. So right before it goes into the shader, I'm adding this saturation node. I'm going to drag over the random right into the saturation. And it doesn't have to go from 0 to 1, and you could tweak it with the color ramp, but sometimes it's nice just to put in a map range node, which effectively does the same thing without being able to easily control all the different steps. But let's see, instead of going from 0 to 1, it's going to go from like 0.5 to, I mean, we could just do 2 and make it get like extra saturated. Although we also want to add our white noise so that there isn't that, you know, diagonal correlation I was talking about. Poof. There we go. Now there's different levels of stuff. Or you could add like a mix. Here, let's see. Color, mix RGB. And we can mix in like a faded type of like color like this. Do the exact same thing. I'm hoping that the white noise isn't heavy, like from a node standpoint. Plug that in the mix factor, and now it's, you know, some of them are nice and faded. And you can do the same thing. I mean, what I really like doing is having, you know, 2 whole shaders here. Like this one could be a duplicate of this, but like it's all ripped and torn and stuff. And then you add a mix shader here, boop, and use one of those threshold things to just decide how many are ripped or torn. But you can really easily add all of these aging factors, which is cool. But yeah, you can see you could really easily set up randomizers for how aged things are, and yeah, so that's just where it gets fun. It's really easy to randomize anything. You get a whole bunch of variety, so no 2 things are ever the same. And hopefully there's something useful in here for you. All right, I was recording. Good. I'll talk to you guys later.